Factories fleeing Michigan isn't just a job story, it's a fiscal bloodbath. Billions in state revenue have already evaporated, the very money that kept your schools open, your streets safe, your hospitals running. And when that revenue disappears, states don't just shrug, they come for you. They raise your property taxes, they slash your services, they make ordinary families pay for corporate betrayal. This isn't a warning about the future, it's happening right now, and it's only getting worse. For decades, Detroit was the beating heart of American industry. General Motors, Ford, and Chrysler, the big three, symbolized American might. At their peak, these companies employed hundreds of thousands of workers in Michigan. They powered local economies, filled state coffers with tax revenue, and built the middle class. But then came the slow bleed. Since 2000, Michigan has lost over 90,000 auto manufacturing jobs. Ohio has watched more than 40% of its auto plants shut down or relocate. Where did they go? Mexico, Canada, even Europe. Why? To slash labor costs, dodge tariffs, and fatten profit margins. On paper, it's a corporate strategy. On the ground, it's devastation. Every plant that closes doesn't just take jobs, it takes millions in tax revenue with it. And that's where the story gets brutal. When a factory shuts down, the damage is silent but surgical. The company stops paying property taxes. It stops paying payroll taxes. It stops generating sales taxes through its supply chain. Take Michigan. In 2019, before tariffs and trade wars rattled the auto market, the state collected nearly $2 billion annually from auto industry-related taxes and fees. Today, much of that stream is drying up. Analysts estimate that Michigan loses between $500 million and $1 billion in tax revenue every year tied directly to auto job flight. That's the money that kept your community alive. Schools feel it first. A single auto plant can generate enough property tax revenue to fund an entire district. When plants close, schools scramble, class sizes swell, teachers are cut, programs vanish. Then come the roads. Michigan, already infamous for crumbling infrastructure, sees highway funds shrink. Next, public safety. Cities cut police and fire budgets, and when the shortfall grows too large, states look for the only pool of money left: you, the taxpayer. Here's the cruel irony. Michigan taxpayers already bailed out GM and Chrysler in 2009, funneling billions in federal money to save the industry. That bailout kept plants alive, for a while. But now, after taking public money, those same companies are relocating abroad. The result? Americans paid once to save the auto giants, and now they're paying again as those same giants abandon US soil. It's double taxation by stealth. Let's get specific. In Wayne County, home to Detroit, property tax rates have climbed steadily even as property values stagnated. Why? Because factories vanished, leaving holes in the budget. In 2023, Detroit reported a $326 million revenue gap tied directly to plant closures and lost industry activity. Homeowners filled the gap.
The same story plays out in Ohio. When the GM Lordstown plant shut down in 2019, a facility that once employed over 16,000 workers at its peak, the surrounding counties lost millions in annual tax revenue overnight. Within months, residents saw school levies rise and local services cut. This is how collapse trickles down. Ordinary Americans don't just lose jobs. They lose schools, they lose infrastructure, they lose safety, and they pay more for the privilege. Why doesn't anyone talk about the tax hole? Because it's easier to talk about jobs. Politicians love photo ops at reopening plants. They love promising jobs coming back. But tax revenue? That's invisible. And yet it's the tax hole that destroys communities. Between 2000 and 2020, Midwestern states collectively lost over $40 billion in manufacturing-related tax revenue. That's more than the annual budget of some entire nations. Trump's tariffs in 2018 promised to protect U.S. jobs, but instead they accelerated flight. Automakers warned they would lose up to $45 billion in profits over a decade from tariffs on steel, aluminum, and parts. Their solution? Move more production abroad, where costs were lower. The result? Michigan and Ohio bled revenue, while Mexico and Canada gained. Look south. In the last decade, Mexico has become a global auto powerhouse. BMW, Nissan, Honda, Ford, Audi, Daimler, Mazda, Toyota all have opened or expanded plants there. Mexico now builds over 3 million cars a year, much of them for export to the United States. Every car built in Mexico is a car not built in Michigan. Every dollar of tax revenue goes to Mexico, not the Midwest. And yet those same cars are sold right back into the US market, sometimes even with added tariffs, meaning American consumers pay higher prices.
So the chain is vicious. Workers lose jobs, states lose revenue, families pay higher taxes, consumers pay higher prices. Everyone loses, except the corporations. Let's put a number on it. A study by the Center for Automotive Research found that for every 10,000 auto jobs lost, states lose up to $100 million in tax revenue annually. Apply that math to Michigan's job losses since 2000, or more than 90,000 jobs, and the state has lost nearly $1 billion every single year. Who fills that hole? Not the corporations, not Washington. Homeowners, families, you. This is why property tax bills keep climbing even as wages stagnate. It's why school levies pass even when communities can't afford them. It's why roads crumble while families pay more. If Michigan and Ohio can bleed billions from auto flight, what happens when the next industry leaves? Because make no mistake, it won't stop with cars. Green tech, semiconductors, aerospace, industries with billions in tax revenue are already scouting cheaper ground. If they leave, the tax hole won't just swallow Michigan. It will swallow America. Factories fleeing Michigan didn't just create a local tax hole. It created a ripple that threatens the entire American economy. Because when one industry leaves, others follow. And when tax revenue evaporates, entire states can collapse under the weight. While Michigan and Ohio scramble, Mexico thrives. In 2023 alone, Mexico's auto exports topped $173 billion, nearly half of its entire manufacturing output. That money isn't just profit, it's tax revenue. It funds Mexican schools, roads, and infrastructure, and it cements Mexico as a global auto hub.
Meanwhile, US states bleed. Michigan's education budget has shrunk by billions since 2000, forcing school districts into repeated austerity. Ohio has closed dozens of schools in just the last decade. Public services wither, while Mexico builds highways and training centers funded by US corporate relocation. So the contrast is brutal. Mexico gains, Michigan pays. And Canada isn't far behind. While Trump's tariffs targeted Mexico, Canadian industries quietly picked up contracts. Auto parts suppliers, aerospace firms, even green tech projects shifted north. In 2022, Canadian auto exports to the US jumped 12% despite the trade war. Why? Because American firms sought stability, and Canada offered it. So while Midwestern states scramble to plug billion-dollar budget holes, Canada's provinces cash in. American decline became Canadian opportunity. The most terrifying part? Because the auto industry isn't the end. Green technology and semiconductors are next in line. EV battery plants, once promised for Michigan, are being courted aggressively by Mexico. Mexico's new energy policies include billions in subsidies for foreign manufacturers. Meanwhile, US states are stuck raising taxes just to keep the lights on. Semiconductors tell the same story. Despite the CHIPS Act promising $52 billion in subsidies, American firms are still outsourcing parts of their supply chains to Taiwan, South Korea, and yes, Mexico. If autos left $1 billion tax hole, imagine the crater when semiconductors follow. Let's return to the local level, because this isn't abstract, it's visible on your tax bill. In 2024, property tax rates in Wayne County, Michigan climbed 3.5% in a single year. That may not sound massive, but for homeowners already stretched thin, it's devastating.
Why did it climb? Because factories vanished, because revenue bled away, because when corporations flee, ordinary families fill the hole. The cycle is clear. Factories leave, budgets collapse, families pay. And here's the cruel twist. Even if jobs return, the tax hole rarely heals. Once plants leave, property values plunge. When suppliers shut down, sales tax dries up. When schools cut programs, enrollment falls. The hole becomes permanent. This tax crisis doesn't just hit wallets. It fuels anger, political anger. Laid-off auto workers in Michigan and Ohio once formed the backbone of presidential elections. Today, they're furious. Furious at Washington. Furious at corporations. Furious at both parties. In 2016, Trump rode that anger into the White House, promising to bring jobs back. But tariffs backfired, accelerating the exodus. Now, in 2025, that anger is burning hotter. Property taxes rise, services shrink, and homeowners ask one question: who betrayed us?
This isn't just an economic story. It's a political time bomb, and it's ticking in every Midwestern swing state. There's another layer, one almost nobody talks about: national security. Auto plants don't just make cars, they make parts used in military vehicles, trucks, even aircraft components. When production shifts abroad, so does strategic capability. In 2022, a Pentagon report warned that America's reliance on foreign suppliers for auto and aerospace parts created a serious vulnerability in times of conflict. Translation: in a crisis, the US military could struggle to secure critical parts because the supply chain now runs through Mexico, Canada, or Asia. So the tax hole isn't just financial, it's existential. Let's strip it bare. Corporations profit. Mexico and Canada collect taxes. Washington points fingers. And who pays? You do.
Michigan's tax hole grows by nearly $1 billion every year. Ohio bleeds hundreds of millions annually. Meanwhile, corporate profits hit record highs. Ford reported $10.4 billion net income in 2023, even as it shifted more production abroad. Ordinary families face rising bills while corporations cash out. This is the betrayal at the core of the story. The people who built America's auto empire are the ones abandoned to pay its funeral costs. Is there a way out? Maybe, but none of the answers are simple. Scenario 1, the federal government steps in with massive subsidies to rebuild local plants. But that's taxpayer money again, families paying a third time. Scenario 2, states diversify, luring new industries to replace autos. But high taxes and shrinking services make them less competitive. Why would companies return to states that punish them with costs when Mexico offers lower wages and incentives? Scenario 3, collapse continues. Factories vanish, states bleed out, homeowners carry the weight until they can't. Then migration begins, families fleeing high-tax states, leaving behind hollowed-out communities. So let's ask the question nobody in power dares to ask. If Michigan and Ohio can collapse under one industry's flight, what happens when others follow? What happens when aerospace, green tech, and semiconductors all chase lower costs abroad? The tax hole doesn't just grow, it becomes a canyon, one that swallows the middle class whole. Factories fleeing Michigan isn't just a job story. It's the opening chapter of America's fiscal unraveling, a story where corporations thrive, foreign nations gain, and ordinary homeowners pay the bill. Unless something changes, the tax hole nobody talks about may soon become the collapse everybody feels.